Welcome. My name is Sonali Shukla-McDermott, and I'm the chair of the Environmental Studies Department here at New York University. Our work strives to understand and address pressing 21st century environmental challenges. However, environmental studies is only one portion of the vast array of research on our changing climate that's conducted across the university at our over 20 schools and colleges. I would like to introduce you to some of this interdisciplinary and impactful work, and to our researchers who are bringing their scholarship to action to address one of the most critical challenges of our time.
I'm Richard Revesz. I'm a law professor at NYU Law School, and I'm the faculty director of the Institute for Policy Integrity. I was the founder in 2008. Policy Integrity is a think tank and advocacy organization. It works to promote desirable policies in the environmental and climate areas.
One of the things that interested me in Policy Integrity was some of their work that they had done on cleaner fuel, actually in New York City.
We were part of a coalition that was working to phase out the use of what was really the dirtiest type of heating fuel, residual oil.
We really reduced the amount of pollution that was in the city, and I think that has a real benefit on people's daily life. I've also worked on vehicle regulations, resource extraction issues, waters of the United States, which was wetlands.
I did testimony in New Mexico on a coal plant closure, Colorado on energy resource planning, and that's a classic role of policy integrity, is that through the right presentation of evidence, we can help nudge things in the right direction.
Policy integrity has had in its history an enormous impact. I can walk down the street and tell someone, because of the work I did, your probability of dying of cancer is 1 in 10,000 lower than it would have been otherwise. In a country that has roughly 350 million people, that is very significant. Having our research be useful in the public policy arena, we do that both by participating in regulatory proceedings, but also in litigation before the courts.
Included 4 important rules regulating the emissions of a range of pollutants from power plants, limiting their greenhouse gas emissions, emissions of hazardous air pollutants, discharges into navigable waters, and disposal of coal ash.
Policy is focused on a number of sectors. The U.S. power sector is an important one. We have focused significantly on the U.S. transportation sector because they're the 2 largest emitters of greenhouse gases in the United States.
Sure, electricity is a public service, but it's also a public problem because we know how to control the energy, but not the harmful effects of using it.
There's a very important number called the social cost of greenhouse gases. And this is the estimate of the damage done by a ton of different greenhouse gases.
Effects to public health, agricultural losses, property damage, to translate that into a dollar amount so that it can be compared to other costs and benefits.
The best estimate, which was developed by the EPA, would put a ton of carbon right now at about $200 a ton, right? So this is adding up to billions of dollars, essentially.
Some of our recent work on translating the emissions from the U.S. power sector into climate damages, finding the data source of the total tons of carbon dioxide that come from power plants, and here's the social cost of greenhouse gas, and multiplying them together, it yields an impressive figure. That's the $380 billion per year of emissions.
Pollution from power plants contributes enormously to climate change, and greenhouse gas standards for power plants are enormously important.
Those standards prevent roughly 5,000 premature deaths a year.
We have been trying to make sure that we do everything we can to provide economic and legal arguments to keep those standards in place.
We recently did some analysis on the EPA's recent claim that power plants do not significantly contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. The problem with this is we can always subdivide things into smaller portions and find that things are insignificant relative to the whole.
Because if you compare it to the global totals, it's only about 3%. When you have a massive worldwide problem, 3% is still a lot.
The claim that this is going to make energy cheaper is also completely wrong because they're basically putting all kinds of roadblocks on renewables, which are now a very cheap way of doing energy.
When you say that every year of U.S. power plant emissions will cause over $350 billion in economic damages, We hope it's hard to say with a straight face that that's not a significant amount of contribution to the harms of climate change.
When I was in the government, I ended up interacting with a lot of the victims of pollution, and it was extremely heart-wrenching. I remember a meeting with families who had been exposed to PFAS and talking about the agony of their 18-year-old daughter dying of cancer. I came across and heard the stories and met and tried to, figure out how the government could meet the needs of people who have suffered, unimaginable health consequences and deaths from exposure to contamination.
We hope that the courts remain an audience for our work to try to keep promoting this evidence-based view of the world.
We can have a clean environment and we can have a strong economy. And I think that policy integrity works to achieve that goal of accounting for both sides and making sure that we make those decisions that actually benefit everybody.
One of the great joys of doing this in an academic institution is seeing people who we worked with when they were students go out and have leadership roles on these issues. And they're now leaders in academia and leaders in the government and leaders in the NGO community. And that's really what makes this work super special.